Hey everyone, and welcome back to AI Podcast. We're kicking off a 10-part series exploring something you interact with every day, probably without even thinking about it. AI-based voice synthesis.
Yeah, it really has become ubiquitous, hasn't it?
It really has.
Hmm.
We're talking about those incredibly realistic voices you hear from virtual assistants, in audiobooks,
Yeah.
even those AI customer service agents. It's mind-blowing how far this technology has come.
It really is, and to think, it all starts by turning plain text into speech, something we call text-to-speech, or TTS.
Right. But it's so much more than just pronouncing words right. What makes it so complex is that we expect AI to capture all those subtle nuances of human speech. Things like tone, rhythm, even emotion.
Exactly. Those are the things that make a synthetic voice truly believable and engaging.
Absolutely. So for those who might not know, why is voice synthesis such a big deal? What makes it so important, especially now?
Well, think about the sheer volume of information we consume digitally every day. Voice synthesis makes that information accessible to everyone. It's also creating more natural and intuitive ways for us to interact with technology.
You mentioned accessibility, which is huge. For people with visual impairments or reading difficulties, voice synthesis is a complete game changer. It allows them to access information and engage with the digital world in a way that wasn't possible before.
Right. And we're only scratching the surface. I mean, think about virtual assistants. Just a few years ago, giving them simple commands was a big deal. Now they can hold conversations and even understand complex requests,
Right.
all thanks to advancements in voice synthesis.
Mm-hmm. And then you have audiobooks,
Busy.
which have exploded in popularity. Imagine being able to read a book while commuting or exercising, all thanks to a realistic-sounding AI voice.
Yeah.
It's changing how we consume content.
It really is. And as we move towards a future with even more immersive technologies like augmented reality and the metaverse, realistic and engaging voice synthesis will be essential for creating truly believable experiences.
Okay, so we've established that AI-based voice synthesis is important, and it's everywhere, but it hasn't always been this good, has it? I remember those early attempts at text-to-speech sounding incredibly robotic.
You're absolutely right. Those early systems were based on concatenative synthesis, which involved piecing together pre-recorded snippets of speech. Imagine a sound collage where you're trying to create a sentence by cutting and pasting individual words.
I get it. It's like trying to create a beautiful melody by randomly hitting keys on a piano. It might resemble music, but it's going to sound clunky and disjointed.
Exactly. And the next evolution was parametric synthesis, which involved generating sound waves from scratch using a set of rules. It offered more flexibility, but the results still sounded artificial.
So when did things start to get really good? When did we make the jump to these amazingly lifelike AI voices?
That's when artificial intelligence and deep learning came into the picture. Specifically, neural networks revolutionized the field of voice synthesis.
You mentioned a revolution. What happened?
Well, it was a fundamental shift. Instead of relying on pre-recorded snippets or rule-based systems, neural networks learn from vast amounts of real human speech data. Imagine an apprentice learning from a master craftsman, observing and mimicking their every technique.
So we're talking about AI that can analyze the subtleties of human speech, understand how we emphasize words, pause, and even convey emotion.
Exactly. And because it's learning from real speech, the result is a voice that's not just accurate, but incredibly natural and expressive.
So what are some specific examples of these neural networks that really push the boundaries of what was possible?
Two that come to mind immediately. WaveNet, developed by DeepMind, and Tacotron 2, a creation of Google AI. They both use neural networks to generate incredibly lifelike voices, but in different ways.
So break it down for us. What's so special about these two systems?
Well, WaveNet took a revolutionary approach. Instead of assembling speech from pre-existing segments, it generates sound waves from scratch. Imagine an artist painting a picture stroke by stroke instead of assembling it from pre-made pieces.
Wow, that's a great analogy. It's going straight to the source, understanding the fundamental building blocks of sound and creating something new from them.
You got it. And then you have Tacotron 2, which takes a two-step approach. First, it converts text into a visual representation of sound, almost like sheet music for speech. And then it uses a neural network to turn that visual representation into an audio waveform.
Okay, so it's like translating text into a kind of sonic blueprint and then using AI to turn that blueprint into actual audio.
That's a great way to put it. And the result is a voice that is incredibly natural and expressive. Often you can't even tell it's a computer talking.
It's amazing how realistic they've become. And I know there are companies like 11 Labs that are taking this technology even further.
They are. 11 Labs is doing some Some incredible work focusing on aspects like voice customization and real-time adaptation.
We're going to need you to unpack those for us, but we're going to have to do it in the next part of our deep dive, which drops tomorrow evening.